Tell them there's no legislation to eliminate all guns. There's no legislation being proposed to subvert the Second Amendment.
I think I can frame it best by identifying the scammer in chief who claims that just to save one life would be worth this.
Isn't it worth it?
He had a chance to save 4 American lives in Benghazi, and he refused to do so. Now he's sending F-16s to Egypt. So how can you believe this guy? This guy is on record. This president of ours has been voted in by that clueless majority who is so out of touch, they still call magazine clips. They still call personal defense weapons assault weapons, which is a nomenclature created by the anti-gun
let's
agenda.
just go through a few
I
things.
don't agree with President Obama on any of that.
Do you agree
stuff.
with universal background checks?
Absolutely not.
Why?
Because the government doesn't need to know who's got what.
Of course they do.
Ted Kennedy was on the no-fly list 5 times.
Is if you are on the no-fly list because you are known as maybe a possible terrorist, you cannot buy a handgun in America. If you're on that no-fly list, your access to the right to bear arms is canceled because you're not part of the American family. You don't deserve that right. There is no right for you.
That's a bureaucracy gone mad. You can't trust these guys.
I don't understand, and I want you to tell me, in the least inflammatory way possible, why outside of hog hunting, which I get is a problem in Texas, anybody needs one of those? And if the answer isn't very convincing, why the least we couldn't do to those poor families who lost people to that weapon is not just remove those from the equation?
Well, a number of things. First of all, I've been monitoring your gun debates. Go ahead and take it to the bank. You will never understand. I really don't believe you'll ever grasp.
What wouldn't I understand?
You don't understand that it's a simple, inanimate tool that tens of millions of American families own, that have never caused a problem, never had an accident, and will never commit a crime. You have these aberrations that are such a minute percentage. So my prayers are as strong as any.
100,000 Americans a year get hit by gunfire, Ted. It's not a minor aberration.
Let me stop you there, because I've been hearing you say this, and you are so full of crap. Listen to me. That statistic includes bad guys shot by cops and intruders shot by homeowners. So that figure is bogus.
And among those demanding stricter gun laws is CNN host Piers Morgan. There's one particular stat that Morgan has been citing for weeks. In our commitment to balanced news, Ben investigates the truth behind it in Reality Check.
The stat that Piers Morgan was continuing to cite, one that Great Britain, which banned guns about 15 years ago, had only 35 gun-related murders in 2011, compared to the United States, which had 11,000. Let's start there, because that number is not correct. According to FBI crime stats for 2011, there were 12,664 homicides in the U.S. Of those, 8,583 were caused by firearms. But of those, 400 are listed as justifiable homicide by law enforcement, 260 justifiable homicide by private citizens. On the other hand, it is true that percentage-wise, Britain has a lower gun homicide rate. With a population of 62.6 million, Great Britain saw 59 gun-related homicides for 2011. Still not the 35 Piers Morgan keeps citing. But that shouldn't be surprising that the gun homicide rate in a country that bans guns would be lower than in a country where guns are not banned. Where the argument falls apart is when you attempt to claim that fewer guns equals less crime. The U.S. has the highest gun ownership rate in the world, an average of 88 guns per 100 people. That puts it first in the world for gun ownership. Yemen is second with 54.8 guns per 100 people. So that means the U.S. has the highest gun murder rate as well, right? Well, no. Honduras, El Salvador, and Jamaica have higher rates. So do 24 other countries. The U.S., despite being number 1 in gun ownership, is number 28 in gun homicide, with a rate of 2.97 per 100,000 people. Of course, Piers Morgan isn't calling for the U.S. to be more like El Salvador and Honduras. He's calling for us to be more like Great Britain. So what do the numbers look like there? The UK has the second highest overall crime rate in the EU. The UK has the 5th highest robbery rate, the 4th highest burglary rate. But more importantly, the EU named Britain as the most violent country in the EU. In the UK, there are 2,034 violent crimes per 100,000 people. That puts it way ahead of even South Africa, with a rate of 1,609 per 100,000. In the United States, we're not even in the top 10. The U.S. has a violent crime rate of 466 crimes per 100,000 residents. So what this means for you is that while people like Morgan insist that the U.S. can learn from Great Britain, well, maybe we can. What we might learn is that violent crime is not the result of a gun or any tool. It is the result of the heart of men and women.
99.99% of the gun owners of America are wonderful people that you are hanging around with here today. Yeah. Perfectly safe, perfectly harmless, wonderful, loving, giving, generous, caring people. Would you leave us the hell alone? Go after the nut jobs, go after the murderers, because I don't know any. We need to lock up the bad guys, and when people show dangerous, murderous intent, which every one of these mass murderers showed, all their neighbors, their family, their teachers, their fellow students, they all knew they were crazy, but Pierce, we didn't stop them because we're worried about hurting their feelings. We have a madman problem in America where they're running around. We have a felony recidivism problem in America. Let's focus on that together and leave the rest of us alone.
How about Prozac? You know the number one, oh, that's the big sponsor, isn't it? Or that whole class of drugs.
Let me ask you a question.
Oh, got to cut that off, don't you? Don't want to talk about the U.S. number one cause of death is suicide now because they give people suicide mass murder pills.
Calm down.
Your answer is give more money to the psychiatrists and psychologists to put more crazy people on drugs that make them kill people, Piers.
Let's try.
Everybody's free. Oh, yeah, yeah. To feel good.
Walking, eating, driving, or engaging in other activities while asleep without remembering it the next day have been reported. Abnormal behaviors may include aggressiveness, agitation, hallucinations, or confusion. In depressed patients, worsening of depression, including risk of suicide, may occur. Alcohol may increase these risks.
Do you think America is going to be safer because gun stores like this are selling so furiously and so much faster weapons and ammunition, increasing both in America?
Absolutely. An armed society is a polite society. And again, I told you these statistics before, and they're not mine. They're actually Scotland Yard supported, they're UN supported, they're FBI uniform crime statistics reported. That where there are more citizens with more firepower, particularly on their person loaded, concealed weapons
Do you know the two countries?
there is a dramatic reduction in violent crime.
I saw you say this, so here's the question for you. Do you know the two countries which have the highest per capita rate of firearms per civilian?
There's been a lot of talk about the need for gun control laws to be more strict across the nation. And this is a highly charged issue. Some say stricter laws would protect the innocent, and others say it would do nothing but take guns away from law-abiding citizens. One of the toughest issues here is to separate the emotion from fact, because it's easy to be angry at guns. But does that anger make sense? To be angry at the tool and not the user. Do you know how many gun-related deaths we have in America each year? According to the FBI's number for 2011, which is the last number where numbers are available, there were 12,664 murders in the U.S. Of those, 8,583 were caused by firearms, which means that 4,081 were committed without a firearm. Now let's stick to the numbers of firearm deaths. Nearly 8,600 murders committed with a firearm in 2011. Now the thinking is that if there were stricter gun laws, these 8,600 deaths, or many of them at least, would have been prevented. But is that true? Well, not necessarily. While guns are the most common tool used for murder, the second most common are knives and cutting objects. And the third, believe it or not, are fists and feet. But there is a bigger issue here. If guns are so dangerous of a tool that society must rid itself of them, is that true of other dangerous tools? While there are under 8,600 gun-related murders in the United States for 2011, there are over 11,000 drunk driving-related deaths, according to the New York Times. That means 2,500 more people are dying at the hands of drunk drivers than guns. So where's the outrage from Piers Morgan of CNN about legal alcohol for those drunk drivers? Where are the calls from Mayor Michael Bloomberg of New York to have a serious debate about banning cars? After all, there are 38,000 traffic deaths in the country every year. Well, what this means for you is that no one is going to move to take your car away, because people will say, well, cars and guns, it's apples and oranges. After all, you need a car to get around, but you don't need a gun. Cars serve many purposes, but guns, they say, serve only one. That argument is not only untrue, but it serves to demonstrate the difference in worldview. Those who are calling for a ban on assault weapons and handguns are doing so because they believe that the greater good in society will be served by removing guns, even though the numbers show the greater good would be better served by removing all cars. The argument over guns isn't really over guns at all. It's over whether or not the individual in America has rights. Rights to speech, rights to property, rights to keep and bear arms. We hear a lot about sovereign states these days, but the truth is, in the eyes of the founders, you are the sovereign. You have rights that no society, no government, and even the greater good cannot take away from you.
The Second Amendment isn't there for duck hunting. It's there to protect us from tyrannical government and street thugs. Take the women in India. Your piece earlier on CNN I was watching during Anderson Cooper's show didn't tell you that the women of India have signed giant petitions to get firearms because the police can't and won't protect them. The answer is, hey, wait a minute, I have FBI crime statistics that come out a year late, 2011. 20+% crime drop in the last 9 years. Real violent crime, because more guns means less crime. Britain took the guns 15, 16 years ago, tripling of your overall violent crime. True, we have a higher gun violence level, but overall mugging, stabbings, deaths, those men raped that woman in India to death with an iron rod 4 feet long. You can't ban the iron rods. The guns, the iron rods, Pierce, didn't do it. The tyrants did it. Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns. And I'm here to tell you, 1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms. Doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken. We will not relinquish them. Do you understand? That's why you're going to fail, and the establishment knows no matter how much propaganda, the Republic will rise again when you attempt to take our guns.